You're listening to Earthsongs with Raven's Purple Haze.
And good morning, everybody. Raven's Purple Haze here. Today's going to be an interesting show. It's going to have both some oral stories, and we're also going to have some music. So I hope you enjoyed today's show. It's been a while since I've done this, and I'm just coming back and trying to get into the swing of these things. It took me a while to compile some of this stuff, and I hope you enjoyed today's show. Here is a story about different creation stories from the Native American point of view.
This video is about many different creation stories of the Native American religions. Creation stories are very symbolic explanations of how the world began. They are a very common form of story found throughout human culture. These creation stories try to describe how man came to earth, how land forms were created, and other things that are unknown. These stories for Native Americans serve as a better way of understanding their ancestors. There are many variations in creation stories, even within each tribe.
The Blackfeet Indian tribe is from the Pacific Northwest. Their creation story begins with this being or godlike figure they call the Old Man, that begins to create many things, like many different land formations. It also talks about how different animals came to live where they are. For example, the Old Man puts the bighorn sheep in the prairie at first, but it was awkward and slow, so he moved it to the mountains, where it was more agile and more at home. The story continues by saying, one day, Old Man decided that he would make a woman and a child. So he formed them both out of clay, the woman and the child, her son. After he had molded the clay in human shape, he said to it, "You must be people." And then he covered it up and went away. The next morning he went to the place, took off the covering, looked at the images, and said, "Arise and walk." They did so. They walked down to the river with their maker, and he told them that his name was Napi, Old Man. This is how we came to be people. It is he who made us.
The tribe of Navajo is located in the southwest of the United States, in the states of Utah, Arizona, New Mexico, and Colorado. Their creation story is interesting because it involves three past worlds that shape the world that we live in today. They refer to the new world as the glittering world. The Navajo believed that humans were actually animals or mass spirits in the three past worlds. The first humans were made in the clouds. The first man was made in the east with the black and white clouds, and the first woman was created in the blue and yellow clouds of the west. They gathered together and began to set up the world. There they decided the four corners that would set up their boundaries of their homeland. The four corners included the San Francisco Peaks, Mount Blanco, Mount Taylor, and Mount Hesperus. After the Navajo deities put the four corners in place, they put the sun and the moon and the stars in the sky in an orderly fashion. The coyote god began to fling the remaining stars into random places. They then created the other needs for the humankind. Evil monsters showed up and began to massacre the Navajo. A woman referred to as the ever-changing woman married the sun and gave birth to two sons who were known as Monster Slayer and the child born of water. The brothers would go around and wreak havoc towards those monsters and turn them into stone. Those monsters turned to stone turned into the formations that we see today. Then the ever-changing woman went to the goat out into the sea with her husband, the sun. There she made people out of her skin. And that's how people were made. The Lakota, who are also known as the Sioux, are from the plains regions of the United States. The Lakota creation story begins with the world just freshly made. The people began to fight the water monster and caused a great flood. It is believed that the great spirit Wonka Tonka let this happen because he wanted better humans. Then the people went to the place where the pipestone quarry was. The people were all killed, and it is their blood that makes the pipestone red. The Great Spirit punched the water monster and turned her into stone. Her bones made up the ridges of the Badlands. Through all this peril, one girl survived. She was saved by a giant eagle that took her to its nest on top of Devil's Tower, or in the Black Hills, which was the eagle's home. Then there was a greater connection between humans and animals, so they were able to have twins, a boy and a girl. The water subsided, and they created the Lakota Nation.
The Cherokee are from the eastern woodlands area of the United States. Their creation story is interesting because there are 4 worlds and 6 beings. The beings are First Man, First Woman, Salt Woman, Fire God, and Bego Chide. Bego Chide is the child of the sun. The first world lived in darkness, and Bego Chide made 4 mountains, white to the east, blue to the south, yellow to the west, and black to the north. There were conflicts in this first world, so he planted a giant reed. It grew, and they climbed it to the second world. The second world was blue, and there was still more conflict, so they moved on up the reed to the third world. It was filled with light. Biglo Chide created rivers and all sorts of other things, including different humans. Biglo Chide said if there was any more trouble, he would flood the third world. Coyote stole the water's baby. This started a great flood. They all went up the reed to the fourth world, where there was an island surrounded by water. Bego Chide ordered the coyote to return the baby to the water monster, and the waters receded. Bego Chide placed mountains, the moon, the sun, and all the stars in the sky. He taught everyone the right way to live, including how to care for the land. The variety of Native American creation stories we explained are very interesting. They explain how humans were created, how landforms came to be, and other questions about the world. Each tribe's creation stories are unique in their own way, from the 4 corners of the Navajo to the East Coast where the Cherokee reside. This is only a fraction of the many creation stories of the Native American tribes of North America.
You're listening to Earthsounds with Raven's Purple Haze.
The oral tradition. It's the oldest and most beautiful way to explain lessons and help understand the unknown, to teach our young and even some adults good from bad. An Ojibwe legend about how a bear lost its tail. Long, long ago, there were only creatures on Earth. There were only birds, deers, mice, and everything but people. In this long ago time, all the animals spoke the same language, and just like some people nowadays, they played tricks on one another and made each other laugh. They also helped each other. So it was with all the animals. One day in the winter, when the lakes had frozen, but before the winter sleep, Bear was walking along the lake shore. As he was walking, he came upon Otter sitting near a hole on the ice with a pile of fish. "You've got a mighty big pile of fish there," Bear said. "How did you get them fish?" Instead of telling how he dove into the water and caught the fish, Otter decided to trick Bear. You see, back then Bear had a very long bushy tail, and he was very proud of his tail, and all the animals knew it. "The way I catch my fish is by putting my tail in this ice hole," Otter explained. "I wiggle it around once in a while so the fish see it. When a fish bites onto my tail, I quickly pull it up and out of the water." "That sure is an easy way to catch fish," Bear said. "Do you mind if I use your fishing hole?" Otter, laughing behind the bear's back, said, "I have enough fish. Use my fishing hole as long as you like." Then Otter picked up his fish and walked away. Bear carefully poked his tail into the ice hole and waited. He waited and waited. Once in a while he wiggled his tail so the fish could see it. Bear waited until the sun began to set, but not one fish even nibbled on his tail. At last he decided to go home, but when he tried to stand up, his tail had frozen onto the ice. He couldn't move. He pulled and pulled at his tail, but it was stuck tight. Finally, he pulled with all his strength and ripped off his tail. Now you know why the bear has a short tail. And remember, don't always believe what people tell you. And now a message.
Make some decisions, and I think that the leadership that we're looking for has to come from business. Very, very important now, because business carries more authority, and they carry the economics of the world. Today, we're bound together much closer than we were so many years ago, 1,000 years ago. We're neighbors, and we're bound together by electronics. We're bound together by technology, and the world has become, quote, a market. And it's this market that we have to deal with, and it's this idea of boundless and endless resources. And when you say resources, you're talking about our relatives, you're talking about our family. Fish are our family. It's not a resource, it's a family. It requires all the respect. The structure of the world itself is such. It functions on natural law, and the natural law is a powerful regenerative process. There's a process of regeneration that continues and grows and is endless. It's absolutely endless, if everyone agrees to the law and follows the law. But if you challenge the law and you think you're going to change the law, then you're bound to failure. And then that failure will be a lot of pain, because the natural law has no mercy. It is only the law. The earth is all-powerful. Wasn't made here for human beings. He said we're part of it. But we don't have to be here because the earth has its own process. And if it becomes to the point where you destroy yourself as human beings and you destroy life and finally leave this earth, the earth's not going to disappear. There's not going to be an end of the world. That's really a very interesting concept to us. No, the world won't end. People's life on it will. So it's not the end of the world you're talking about, it's the end of us. And the world, no matter what damage you think you've done to it, will regenerate, will regreen, will redo everything that was here at one time, except there won't be any people. Because it's got all the time in the world. I said, now, as you're coming down the final stretch, you're racing towards the finish, and there is the stone wall, and you're not pulling your horse. You're not stopping. You're in fact accelerating. I said, now, that's the way I see the use of what you call resources. You're using them faster than they're reproducing. And you're headed towards that disaster, and none of you are pulling your horse. I said, take the example of a car race or racing cars. They have a yellow flag. When there's an accident or something, a yellow flag comes out, everybody gets into line, and they slow down, and they have sort of a common sense about that, at least. I said, do you have a concept of a yellow flag? Is there a yellow flag amongst your ideas or your thinking here? And one of the gentlemen, and they were all men, maybe 50 to 60, 65, he said, he said, I understand what you're saying, but to answer your question, no, we can't. We can't pull our horse, as you say, because, he said, we have to show a profit. As a CEO, I must show a profit. If I don't show a profit, he said, I'm fired. Simple as that. I'm out of a job. I have to show a profit. I said, to who? He said, to you, the stockholder. I said, well, are you married? He said, yes, I am. I said, do you have children? He said, yes, I do. I said, do you have any grandchildren? He said, I have two boys. I said, when do you cease to be a CEO and become a grandfather? There was a lot of silence there, because that was a moral question. And if you don't have a moral question in your governing process, then you don't have a process that's going to survive. That's the governing law, the moral question. You must have a moral society, or you won't have any. He couldn't answer the question, and neither could anyone else, because it was a moral question. That's what we have to get back to. So they said, well, got kind of heavy silence there. So they said, look, you're a Indian, and we keep hearing about Indian prophecies. Can you give us a prophecy? Can you tell us a prophecy? And of course, I told him a lot, because I know a lot of them. But at that particular moment, I said, certainly I can. And I can guarantee it. I said, really? Well, what is it? I said, next year you'll meet and nothing will have changed. And again, there was silence. We're moving in a very direct line to that stone wall. I do not believe personally that we have passed the line or the point of no return. But we're approaching it. We're approaching it. And every day that you don't do what's right is a day that you've lost an option. And you're losing your options every day.
You're listening to Earthsongs with Raven's Purple Haze.
This is the story of the Invisible Warrior. Once upon a time, on the shores of a wide bay on the Atlantic coast, dwelt a heroic Indian warrior. He had a very strange and wonderful power, in that he could make himself completely invisible. In fact, he often took the liberty to casually mingle every so often, unseen amongst his enemies, and listen in on their plots. He was known amongst the people as Strongwind the Invisible. Now, Strongwind lived with his sister in a tent near the sea. Many maidens would have been oh so glad to marry him, and he was much sought after because of his mighty deeds. And it was known that Strongwind would marry the first maiden who could see him. In order to choose a wife who was pure at heart, the warrior devised a clever trick to test the truthfulness of all who sought to win him. Each evening as the day went down, his sister walked on the beach with any girl who wished to pass the test. Now, his sister could always see him, but no one else could. And as he came home from work in the twilight, his sister, seeing him draw near, would test the latest girl wishing to marry him by asking her if she could see him. And of course, each girl would falsely say that she could. Then his sister would ask, "And with what does he draw his sled?" And sure enough, each girl would openly lie, answering, "Using a great cord, of course." Then his sister would know that they had been lying, for their answers were mere guesses. And although many women had tried to pass the test, all of them had lied about being able to see Strongwind. And so one by one, they all failed, for Strongwind would not marry any who were untruthful. Meanwhile, there lived in the village a great chief who had 3 daughters. Their mother had long been dead. One of the chief's girls was very much younger than the others. She was very beautiful and gentle and well beloved by all. Her older sisters were very jealous of her charms and treated her with intolerable cruelty. They clothed her in rags and cut off her long black hair. They burned her face with coals from the fire, that she might be scarred and disfigured. And once more, they lied to their father, telling him that she herself had done all these things. But the young girl was patient and kept her gentle heart and went gladly about her work. Now, like the other girls, the chief's 2 eldest daughters had also tried to win Strongwind. One evening, as the day went down, they walked on the shore with Strongwind's sister and waited for his coming. Soon he came home from his day's work as usual, drawing his sled, and his sister asked, "Do you see him?" And each one, lying, answered, "Yes." Strongwind's sister then asked, "Of what is his shoulder strap made?" Guessing again, they said, "Of rawhide?" Then they entered the tent where they hoped to see Strongwind eating his supper, and when he took off his coat and moccasins, they could see them, but more than these, they saw nothing. And Strongwind knew that they had lied, and he kept himself from their sight, and they went home dismayed. One day, the chief's youngest daughter, with her rags and her burnt face, resolved to seek Strongwind herself. She patched her clothes with bark from the trees and put on a few little ornaments, the only ones that she possessed, and went forth to try her luck at seeing the Invisible One, as all the other girls of the village had done before her. Her sisters merely laughed at her, calling her a fool, and as she passed through the village, all the people laughed at her tattered frock and her burnt face. But silently, ignoring the taunts, she went her way. Strongwind's sister received the little girl kindly, and at twilight she took her to the beach. Soon enough, Strongwind came home drawing his sled, as usual, and his sister asked if she saw him, to which the girl answered, "No." His sister immediately knew that the girl had spoken the truth. After waiting a little while longer, she again asked, "Do you see him now?" To which the girl answered, "Oh yes, and he is very wonderful." Testing her still, the sister asked, "And with what does he draw his sled?" The girl answered, "With the rainbow." And finally, the sister asked, "And of what is his bowstring?" And the girl answered, "His bowstring is the Milky Way." Then Strongwind's sister knew that because the girl had spoken the truth at first, her brother had made himself visible to her. And she said, "Truly, you have seen him." And she took her home and bathed her, and all the scars disappeared from her face and body, and her hair grew long and black again like the raven's wing. And she gave her fine clothes to wear and many rich ornaments. Then she bade her take the wife's seat in the tent. Soon Strongwind entered and sat beside her and called her his bride. And the very next day she became his wife, and ever afterwards she helped him to do great deeds. The girl's two elder sisters were very cross, and they wondered greatly at what had taken place. But Strongwind, who knew of their cruelty, resolved to punish them. Using his great power, he changed them both into aspen trees and rooted them in the earth. It is said that to this day the leaves of the aspen have always trembled in fear at the approach of Strongwind, for they are still mindful of his great power and anger caused by their lies and cruelty to their sister long, long ago. The end.
Alright guys, that was the end of the show. This is Raven's Purple Haze here on Spreaker Radio, and it's a short show today, but I have things planned out, and I will be back, and I hope you enjoyed it. Thank you very much. Here, once again, Raven's Purple Haze on Spreaker Radio.